What's up, locals? Here today with our friend Andre, the owner and founder of, co-founder? Founder.
Sort of co-founder, depends on if you want to get official or not, but yeah.
Of Parked Pro. I like to think of them as sort of the aspiring Canadian Jomez Pro. He was coming through Calgary today, so we were able to kind of connect just briefly and wanted to give him a shout out on the channel and just say, give a little information about what you're getting from Parked Pro this year and what's to come.
Yeah.
So thanks so much. How did Parked Pro come to be?
Well, so Parked Pro was kind of a brainchild for myself. I come from a photography background and actually originally ultimate background. Okay. And then in 2019, I got into disc golf. So technically I can call myself a pre-COVID disc golfer. But I fell in love with the sport like right off the hop, and it came from a necessity of just being able to fly, like throw a disc, and I didn't have ultimate where I was. And I was hooked immediately, like all of us, everyone listening to this channel, you know the feeling. Totally. When you sink a big putt or anything like that. I was hooked, and then from there, just kind of was a natural progression with my photography and video background, and so it was just kind of combining my two passions. And then as far as making a real go at it, it's been a slow couple of years, and then last year I had Matt, who is now my partner. He reached out to me towards the end of the year, and it was kind of at a point where I was like, is this a real thing? Yeah. And then Matt has been an amazing addition, and technically we didn't have a real company before that, and now we are an incorporated company as of February. And we've been working hard this off season to really try to streamline our stuff, because as many of you know, Jomez is next day. You can't really expect next day with us, but we're going to work hard to get it out as fast as we can, because we know that recency is extremely important. So that's kind of was our off-season focus, and that's kind of where we are this spring. So
I love that. I know for us, the origins of local disc golf, which we haven't really talked about yet, but originally we were a little project called Local Breakdown, and our original thought was to do like flyover footage similar to Jomez when you get the whole breakdown. So we were going to be Local Breakdown, and I remember the guy that I was working with on that project said, I found these guys called Parked Pro, and I was like, oh my God, someone's beat us to this, because I saw the website's got the picture of the drone up there, and I was like, oh, they're doing drone footage, like we missed it, like, but ultimately, that project didn't end up working out, and we find ourselves in a different vein now. But the origins of local disc golf was actually Local Breakdown, where we were just going to try to like travel around and do like all of this footage, and then attempt to connect with UDisc down the road, so that there'd be like integrated footage of like whole flyover. So as you're in UDisc, you'd have the option to watch these. But it was a massive project with like, the thought of, how do you do this? How do you take on this?
It's funny that you bring this up now, because we probably had a conversation with UDisc at about the same time, because I asked them if that was kind of a thing that they were looking down the pipeline, and they said yes, and like it totally makes sense. And in that vein, I was like, maybe like we develop an app, and that you can look at these drone flyovers, and then I was like, well, people aren't going to go to UDisc and then go to this other thing. Yes. So having them integrated into one is amazing. But I will say that is something that we're trying to work on getting on our website, is so that, part of Parked Pro, what we do is we also do graphic design and obviously photography and video. Yes. And so we have done a few drone overviews, and that's something that we're adding to our website, is these drone overviews of these courses that we've been to. Obviously, it's based around the courses that we've done coverage for or that are local to us, and then obviously, like, it'd be awesome to bring other people who have drones and just be able to, put that information in one spot. And then with our graphic design, I've designed T signs for down in Cranbrook, BC. Yeah, and they have a little QR code on them. Yeah, that's what we were going to do. The QR code in, it takes you to the website, you pick the hole that you want to see, and it does a quick little flyover.
That's so funny, because we were of the same headspace on that one, but it was like the logistics of like, how do you you know, and then if you could get people in different areas to do some filming, you know, you can't really pay them, but maybe they could at least be acknowledged as, you know, the pilot of the footage, or, you know, the videographer of that course, or, you know, you get recognition some way, because again, we know that in disc golf, it's, you know, in this, where people are trying to create, you know, little businesses for themselves in the sport that we all love, you know, money, despite the explosion, it's still, you know, a huge challenge in the sport. Moving along, what, you know, I've seen this Canadian tour, and wanted to give you a chance to speak to what this Canadian tour is, and then in terms of like the footage that we can expect.
Yeah, so the Canadian Disc Golf Tour was something that Matt and I immediately recognized as something that we wanted to do. And, you know, it was something that we weren't maybe not totally expecting to have it happen right away, but we were kind of still working through our sort of our map. And it was just kind of end up being like, you know, we want to do 9 to 10 tournaments this year. Why don't we just spread them out, call it a tour, and it's in Canada and there's no one else doing it. So that's kind of where this Canadian Disc Golf Tour came from, is a tour based on our coverage, and then, you know, in implementing a point system and with prizing and everything. And it's been, you know, there's definitely been some challenges as far as trying to get it all off the ground and getting tournaments to buy in and take us seriously. But, you know, we're happy to say that we have 9 tournaments that have agreed to be part of this inaugural tour. And it starts off in at
TCO?
TCO. I was going to say it's going to be a couple weeks from when we're recording this today, so almost to the day. So, and we did we've done a couple practice tournaments since then, and and then what you can expect is coverage of some Canada's top pros, and we are focused on the mixed professional open division for this year, and we are hoping to incorporate more of the FPO as well. And we have 2 tournaments in BC, 2 in Alberta, 1 in Saskatchewan, 1 in Manitoba, 2 in Ontario, and 1 in Nova Scotia.
Wow.
So, and at this point, we've announced, I think, 6 or 7 of them. And then the last couple will come out in the next couple of weeks. So
very cool.
Yeah.
With this tour, will it be lead card coverage? Are you intending to cover a couple of cards? What can people expect?
It'll primarily be lead card coverage, and obviously feature card for the first round. Our goal is to have camera people on site where we can, if someone's sort of catching up from the chase card, we could potentially send a camera back and have single camera coverage of that person. Obviously, it takes more hands, and, you know, we kind of talked about how hard it is to break into this industry with the financial situations as it is.
Definitely.
So that's only something that will be made possible if we can find more sponsors of the tour and of these tournaments. So
for sure. Well, it's got to start somewhere, and I think it's extremely exciting and encouraging to see a tour like this. You know, I think Canada as a whole, you know, there's the battle of just sheer numbers that we, you know, we don't have the size, but these kinds of programs, this tour, you know, it's going to be challenging at the beginning, but it's, you know, it's people like you know, taking these steps, taking these risks initially, you know, searching out sponsorship and everything that comes with it. There's so much work behind the scenes. So if you're catching this video, what's the best way for people to reach you? You know, if someone goes, oh, I've got a business and I'd love to get involved, or help with sponsorship or donating prizes, like how can people get involved? Yeah,
so the best way to get involved is obviously check us out on parkpro.com. And then you can follow us on YouTube. We have Park Pro YouTube as well. And then Instagram, we are at Park Pro and at cdgt.ca. You can check out all the information of the CDGT on cdgt.ca. And the best way to get a hold of myself, is info@parkedpro, or Matt, which is matt@parkedpro.com. And yeah, just reach out to us. Tell us how you want to support us. We also have a Patreon account. So that is based on our content that we produce, which includes our podcast, which we come out with an episode on a weekly basis, and then any of the additional content we create on top of that. So if you can support our Patreon, that's great. And then we'll also have one of the things we're hoping to implement is just sort of a donate button, so people don't have to make that monthly commitment. And that will be available on our website soon.
Very cool. And speaking of that podcast, I was going to get to that because I caught a recent episode of the podcast with none other than Scott Stokely. And, I'm sure in terms of the podcast, I would have to think that would be a high-ranking episode in terms of an experience. And could you summarize? I highly recommend that you check out their podcast and watch that episode. But were there any sort of takeaways from that conversation with the experience and wealth of knowledge, and obviously the that personality that is Scott Stokely? What was that like?
Oh, it was great. It was great. It's always nice to talk to people who have been in the sport for a while, and he has obviously got a lot of really great experiences. One of those guys that you can talk to for forever and just continue talking to. And I think for me, the biggest thing was, we were kind of having this conversation beforehand, is I'm an amateur, you're an amateur.
Totally.
Having him being able to explain these things and really be there to listen to it, that was for me, my takeaway personally. And it's one of those things that it's hard to translate in a podcast, because normally people listen to these podcasts and they're out driving or they're doing something. But if you sit down and you listen to what he's saying and you're actually trying to figure out what he's saying, there's a lot of really great stuff that he says, and it's already some of the stuff I've taken and implemented in my game, especially as far as putting and the forehand as well. So
it was a phenomenal episode. I highly recommend if you get the chance to check that one out.
Yeah. And so that's Northern Flights.
Northern Flights, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We'll leave a link down in the description to that as well. Obviously this tour is, so new, but I guess I had two questions. Where do you see, disc golf coverage in Canada going? Or maybe the question is, where would you like to see it go?
Yeah, it's a good question. And obviously, if we can get it to a point where it is that sort of Jomez, maybe not Jomez quality, but the next day coverage and that sort of thing, our goal of the whole tour is to showcase the Canadian talent that we have. There's a lot of really good players up here, and you don't really hear much about that. And I think having that coverage of these great players will, not only help their careers and help them get sponsorships and maybe encourage them to take this as a real career opportunity as a player, but it will also inspire people that are watching them and seeing that it's possible for Canadian players to make a go at it and get the sort of coverage and the exposure that you see a lot down in the States and over in Finland and stuff. So
absolutely. Well, we were so excited to be able to have a conversation with you today, because local disc golf is recognizing that we are all locals in our own communities, and that the sooner we can start to connect our local communities to the bigger sport, the stronger we all get. And so, there's an amazing community of disc golfers in Canada. We see a lot of people through Facebook groups like Canadian Disc Golf Hub and things like that, where, we are a united group. And so, take this challenge to, become more familiar with the Canadian scene. We love to consume disc golf content, whether it's Jomez or the live tour, or so I just encourage you to here's someone in a project that's doing something to bring up the Canadian product and showcase the Canadian talent. So as we are local disc golf, we really want to encourage as many people as possible to watch that TCO coverage. When Canadian Nationals is happening, pay attention. You'll get some pros at that. I know that's going to be a real sort of easy to consume. If that's your first look at Canadian content this year, great. get familiar with it. There's a nice playlist up there too with some of the different tournaments already. And as this year goes on, you know, we really want to encourage people to give Parked Pro, you know, some attention and keep an eye out, because there's really, really cool things coming. Last couple questions. One just kind of a fun one. Do you have a favorite course in Canada?
In Canada, that's yes. I haven't been to too many.
Yes.
I haven't been to the East Coast to play out there yet.
Yeah, me neither.
I played a few here in Calgary, a couple in Saskatchewan, and obviously a number of places in Alberta. And I think my favorite would have to be currently, I haven't played Raptors Knoll yet, so I can't put that on the list, but it is something that I will be doing this summer.
For sure.
So my favorite course is actually Wycliffe out in the Kootenays. Obviously, being from the Kootenays, it's an hour and a half drive for myself, and obviously probably a 3.5 hour commitment. It's a long course, but just like so challenging, really challenging elevation, really challenging lines, and it's one of those courses that it's a good, you know, if I always say disc golf is type 2 fun a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those sports where you almost enjoy getting beat up at a course, and that's definitely one of those courses. So.
I love a course that will kick my butt.
Exactly.
I'm the exact same way.
Yeah.
Nordic Center here in Canmore is one of those two for me that is just ruthless, but when you get that shot, it's so rewarding and you leave feeling so good.
Yes.
I've been fortunate enough to play Wycliffe, and it is right at the top too. And I think that Kimberley, Cranbrook area, you know, with the college course there, it's such a great little pocket to check out. You know, I know we've got a lot of viewers both, across Canada, but we've also got, you know, a huge audience in the States too. So, you know, hopefully if you're still with us in this episode today, you know, BC and Alberta both have some phenomenal courses in and around the Rockies. It's spectacular golf.
If you're looking for suggestions, hit me up, info@Parked Pro. I'm happy to give suggestions. There's a number of courses that are amazing. Can I give some honorable mentions?
Absolutely.
All right, we got Nipika Resort. It's a little gem that's between Calgary and Radium Hot Springs or Invermere, and that place is a phenomenal venue, and it's just gorgeous. Really nice tee pads, really nice baskets. It's only a couple years old, but they put a lot of work into the course and do an amazing job. And then Raven's Nest is our local course, and shout out to Jesse Tumulty. He's the designer of that, and our Invermere crew has put a lot of work into that course, and it's one of those type 2 courses as well. It'll beat you up and you'll have fun doing it.
I love it.
So.
That's awesome. Andre, thank you so much for taking a few minutes today. I was really glad that we were able to connect, and you know, keep your eyes open. TCO's in a couple weeks now. We'll be keeping an eye out on it as well, and try to keep you guys in the loop for, you know, where they're at in the Canadian tour and what you should be watching. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. I'm a big fan of locals. So, and you know, obviously when you're doing coverage, you count on the locals a lot to be able to watch that coverage. Locals love watching coverage of their own courses, so that's really important to us as well.
Awesome. Well, that's awesome. Thank you again so much. Let's wrap it up.
Well, this is local.
We are local.